Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down the 2024 Valspar Championship. It is the last event of the PGA Tour's Florida swing before we head over to Texas for a little bit. And this is a unique test on the PGA Tour. On this episode, we're going to break down the course itself, the Copperhead Course at Innisbrook Resort, and give you guys some key stats and characteristics that are going to play well here. And then we're going to look at the board and try to figure out what golfers we like and don't like in DFS betting and one and done. So no matter what format of game you're playing here this week, whether you're playing DFS, whether you're betting, or whether you're playing one and done, we're going to give you guys plenty of information that you're going to want and need to successfully pick some winners here at the Valspar Championship. Now, this week is the first week of the NCAA tournament, aka March Madness. So we've been devoting a lot of attention to college basketball here in this channel. If you are here for golf, I highly suggest you check out the college basketball content. We've got a basketball or a bracket breakdown video, and then we're going to have a DFS video tonight and tomorrow night for the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested in playing college basketball DFS or if you're interested in making a bracket. And if you are interested in making a bracket, we are doing an official bracket challenge. So reach out to me directly. Preferably on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks if you would like to be included in that. So that way I can get you guys the link. It is private. It is paid. So I can get you guys the link and get your payment in a secure manner. But if you reach out directly, that'll be the best way that you can do that. All right, so let's go ahead and end the introduction there. Let's go ahead and start talking about the Copperhead Course, y'all. If you guys are watching on YouTube, Golf Stay and Plays have a great video that's kind of like a flyover of this course here. And I think that it's a really, really good preview for like just the type of course and the atmosphere that you're going to be looking at. So the Copperhead Course at Innisbrook Resort is one of the toughest tests in the PGA Tour schedule. It's being played in Tampa, Florida, but it really looks like it's more like a course in North Carolina. It looks like a lot of the courses that I play. There's a lot of elevation changes. It is tree-lined fairways, and there's not a whole lot of water hazards. This is not your typical Florida design. Now, it is a par 71, and it plays at about 7,400 yards. But what's interesting about that, though, is there's actually 5 par 3s and 4 par 5s. So it plays much longer than that 7,400 yards that it is on the scorecard. And it actually has some of the most difficult par 3s on tour. All 5 of them are over 190 yards. So all 5 of them are going to feature long approach shots. They are all very difficult to birdie and feature very low birdie rates. You have to score on the par 5s if you want to win on this course, because really the par 3s and the par 4s are just so tough. The par 5s are the really only birdie opportunities that you're going to be able to get. And even then, hole number 6 is no slouch. It's a like uphill, downhill par 5, and it's not reachable in 2 for most of the field. And so even the par 5s on this one are not exactly easy birdies. And this is a course that is going to play tough. It also has a named section at the end. We featured a few of these here so far. The snake pit, holes 16, 17, and 18 named for the course's name, the Copperhead Course. It generally provides a finish that does not really yield a whole lot of birdies. And so if you've got a leader that's up by 1 heading into those final holes, the snake pit, it's going to be really hard for them to hold serve and par out. Now, this course is very difficult off the tee. It's got a lot of constricted landing areas. Like there's a lot of fairways that, from the tee box look like they're fairly wide, but from where you're going to be hitting the ball to, it gets pretty narrow. Hole 5, the par 5, is a perfect example. It's got a wide landing area initially, but if you really want to pull driver, it gets significantly narrower as there's bunkers on both sides of it. So there's a lot of holes that are designed to be less than driver off the tee. The other strategy you can take, though, is if you are a supremely accurate driver, you can pull driver off the tee, but just know that there's going to be a little bit of risk in doing that. Sam Burns, the 2 years he won it, still pulled driver off the tee a ton, but he's an accurate driver. He was able to keep it in the fairway in these constricted landing zones and still get that advantage from having that distance boost. So this is a course that has like multiple strategies, and because it's largely less than driver off the tee, there are a lot of approach shots that become longer than they normally would for a hole that length. So that creates a lot of long approach shots. So long approach shots when it comes to the long par 3s, the par 5s, and the par 4s is going to be a skill that is going to be needed very much this week. Now, the green and regulation percentage is very low this week, significantly below tour average, and that's because the approach shots are coming from a longer distance, but it's also because the greens themselves are very, very tiny. And so with all that being said, this course yields a birdie rate that is one of the lowest on the PGA Tour, and it also is generally one of the hardest courses that is on the PGA Tour schedule. The rough last year was thickened by about 3/4 of an inch, and so it became almost US Open level rough, and it played much more difficult than it had the previous 2 years. Because of the changes to the schedule for COVID, the 2 years that Sam Burns won it in 2021 and 2022, it played significantly easier. The course had dried out a little bit, it had grown out a little bit more, and it just was not the same difficult test. But now that this course is back in March, they've thickened up the rough. Now they got it back to playing difficult how they want it to be. So at the end of the day, oh, the greens themselves also. They are the surface that we talked about last week at Sawgrass, where they are Bermuda with a Poa trivialis overseat. I'm no agronomy expert, but apparently this makes it very similar to putting on carpet. They're very smooth. It's the same surface that you're going to see at TBC Scottsdale, TBC Sawgrass, PGA West at the American Express, and then Harbor Town as well. So those are the courses that you want to look at putting splits, as well as this one, to kind of know who actually puts well here on this surface. Now, this is not a bomber's course. There's really two ways to separate yourselves here at this course. You can separate it with your approach play by hitting more greens and giving yourself more birdie looks than the other field, or you can separate it by scrambling and being somebody who is able to get up and down for par where others will not. And so those are the two skills that I really want to see this week. I really want to see guys who can generate birdie looks from their approach or generate par looks from their short game. And so in that regard, I really think that there's a few comp courses that they're all kind of in this area of the country. First of which is Eastlake, which is a par 70 that is super long and pretty narrow off the tee as well. And then the second is Augusta National. I think that there's a little bit of crossover to here in Augusta National because of the number of long approach shots, because of the emphasis placed on the short game, because of the crossover success there. Like Jordan Spieth has won both those tournaments. And then also another course that has a lot of crossover success is Colonial Country Club. Colonial has a ton of long par threes. It's a long par 70, and it's been won by Sam Burns and Jordan Spieth, who have also won here at this course. Now, when you take a look historically at its success here, you guys who win this event for the week tend to do so being well rounded. So last year, you look at Taylor Moore's victory, he putted the lights out, but he also did not lose strokes around the green. He did not lose strokes off the tee, and he did gain a lot of strokes on approach. Really, if you look at it, you pretty much have to gain strokes in all four categories if you want to win here at this tournament. That's pretty much historically what all the winners have done. So I do want kind of a well-rounded golfer, but priority is going to lie on somebody who can just keep it in the fairway off the tee, generate birdie looks on approach, and generate or save par with their around the green play and putting. Now, in terms of course history here, the best golfers in the field on this course. Ben Coles has played this event one time, and he ranks as the best in course history. But the course history king here is going to be Sam Burns. He's played this event in the last 5 years, never finished worse than 30th, with the last three being first, and sixth. Matthew Neesmith is right behind Sam Burns with a T21 and a T3 in his last two appearances here. And then Davis Riley finished runner-up to Sam Burns in 2022, and then finished 19th in last year's edition. Jordan Spieth played this event a ton at the early part of his career with a win in 2015. And last year, he finally played it again after a 3-year hiatus and finished T3. He's another guy with very solid course history here. Xander Schauffele and Justin Thomas, should come as no surprise, also have pretty good course history here at this event. Now, in terms of the key stats that you're going to look at here at the Copperhead course, I think the strokes gained off the tee is going to be important. Basically, you're going to need to be able to keep it in the fairway, or if you are pulling driver, can you get it far enough and straight enough that you can separate yourself from the field that way? So the key stat that I want from that kind of category is good drive percentage, which means did you either hit the fairway or were you able to hit a green in regulation on your second shot? Basically, if you did hit it into the rough, did you put yourself in a position that you could still recover and hit a green? Stroke gained approach is going to be supremely important. Heck, stroke gained approach is supremely important every week. But like I said, that's a key aspect of being able to separate yourself here. And then scrambling is going to be big here. Can you save par? Because there's going to be a ton of missed greens. So can you save par when you missed it? Which also ties into bogey avoidance, which I have as a key stat. But I also want greens in regulation gained as a stat this week. Are you able to hit the green more than your opponents? Because that will generate more birdie looks. Because with these small greens, anywhere on the green is going to be a legitimate look at birdie. All right, so let's take a quick breather, and then we're going to jump down the rabbit hole for quite a bit. If you have been with me for a few weeks now, you know that I am not being facetious when I say go down a rabbit hole. BetSpertsGolf.com has a tool called the rabbit hole that I think is one of the best tools in data databases out there for predicting what's going to happen at a PGA Tour golf event. They have a ton of conditions that you can filter and a ton of options, and it really has helped me pick out who is going to be good and who is not going to be good each week as we go through the PGA Tour season. So this week, I think more than anything, I want to prioritize recent form and I want to prioritize approach play. So this in this field, let's go ahead and take a look at the last 30 rounds. Who have been the best players in the field in terms of strokes gained total? And the top 5 in that category are Xander Schauffele, should come as no surprise considering he's the highest priced golfer in the field and the betting favorite, followed by Doug Gim, Chesson Hadley, Bo Hostler, and Hayden Springer as your top 5, with Maverick McNeely, Taylor Montgomery, Sam Burns, Taylor Pendrith, and Jordan Spieth rounding out the top 10. So, if I were to narrow it down to just approach play, though, who are the best approach players in the field over the last 30 rounds? That is Tony Finau, Nick Taylor, Christian Bezadenhout, Lucas Glover, and Justin Thomas as your top 5. Xander Schauffele, Cameron Young, Doug Gim, Joel Damon, Victor Perez rounding out the top 10. So those are all guys that I'm definitely going to be considering if I find approach play to be a super important stat this week, which I do. Now, around the green, who is good at getting that ball close when they're off the green in recent months? So the top 10 in that category are Maverick McNeely, S.H. Kim, Mackenzie Hughes, Aaron Baddeley, Jorge Campillo, William Furr, Andrew Novak, Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, and Zach Blair. Now, what if we switched it up just a little bit, and most of the short game of this course is going to be happening from the rough. So who is good when their ball gets in the rough at getting that ball up and down? Well, the top 10 are Evan Harmerling, who I assume is a Korn Ferry Tour player with a very limited sample size, followed by Austin Cook, Roger Sloan, Raul Pareda, Eric Barnes, Greg Cook, Bryce Garnett, Aaron Baddeley, Patrick Fishburne, and Ben Griffin. A lot of very low dollar names on that list. I'm guessing because not a whole lot of big dogs find themselves in the rough very often, having to scramble and get up and down. All right, now also, what if we took a look at par 5 scoring? Because you're going to have to be able to score on the par 5s this week. So the best par 5 scoring average players in the field are Max Grazerman, Bud Cauley, Doug Gim, Norman Jong, Bo Hostler, Greg Cook, Kevin Tway, Tony Finau, Matty Schmid, and Taylor Pendrith. All right, now let's start narrowing down the conditions. Let's start getting funky. So, who are the best golfers in the field when it's a less than driver course and the fairways are hard to hit? So, in other words, when you're not pulling driver from your bag, are you able to hit these fairways and are you able to gain strokes off the tee? Leaders in strokes gained off the tee for that condition are Kevin Yu, Keith Mitchell, Hayden Buckley, Akshay Bhatia. Akshay's back this week, y'all. Sung J M, Tyler Duncan, Sam Stevens, Gary Woodland, Ryan Palmer, and Aaron Rai as the top 10. If you flip it over to good drive percentage, the top 10 is going to be Kevin Doherty, Bud Cauley, lost my spot there, Nicholas Lindheim, Evan Harmeling, Richard Hoey, Patrick Fishburne, Hayden Springer, Kevin Roy, and Aaron Rai, and Lucas Glover rounding out your top 10. So a lot of kind of no names there on that list. Now, what if we switched up though and talk about approach? So I want to look at approach for longer courses and small greens. And so in those two conditions, the best approach players in the field are Tony Finau, Nick Hardy, Blaine Hale, Tom Whitney, Parker Cootie, Robbie Shelton, Gary Woodland, Xander Schauffele, Bo Hostler, and Victor Perez. After that, let's take a look at who are the best players in scrambling when the course is difficult. So the leaders in that condition are Josh Teeter, Bronson Burgoon, Max Grazerman, Rafael Campos, William Furr, Joe Highsmith, Kevin Yu, Raul Pareda, Grayson Sigg, and David Skins as your top 10, with Doug Gim coming in 11th. There are not a whole lot of measured rounds in that condition, I guess. So not exactly the easiest one to go by there on that one. Now, what if we switch it over to The courses that have the same comp grass as this one, though. So Scottsdale, Sawgrass, Harbortown, the Stadium Course, and TPC San Antonio. Who are the best putters on that surface? Well, Taylor Montgomery, Matt Kuchar, Chesson Hadley, Justin Suh, Brendan Todd, Billy Horschel, Aaron Baddeley, Sam Ryder, Thomas Dietrich, and Brian Harmon are your top 10 in putting on that surface. Very surprised to not see Sam Burns pop up on that list. He is 21st, and he has a long run of being good at putting at these courses. So definitely a guy that I would look out for that stat. Now, when we throw all of that into a custom model, along with a few others that I'll put, and this is just my first edition of the model. I will be kind of tweaking this as the week goes on. When you throw all of this into a custom model, here are the guys that pop out at the very top. Xander Schauffele is number one. Doug Yim is number two, which is not super shocking to me considering that it's a very heavy approach model and his approach play has been outstanding. Tony Finau, number three. You never have to pull my leg to play Tony Finau, and having him come in third in my model, definitely going to be a guy that I get in there. Chesson Hadley, number four. That's a guy that I really was not privy to until seeing him pop up in my model, but now he's going to be a guy that I'm going to be considering. Christian Bezadenhout, Aaron Rai, 5 and 6. Keith Mitchell, Bo Hostler, Sam Ryder, and Andrew Novak rounding out the top 10. I'm willing to go back to Andrew Novak this week. Now, among the highest priced players, Xander Schauffele was first. Sam Burns was 13th. Thomas and Spieth were 50 and 53, which, considering I didn't factor in course history into this model, does not help the two of them. And considering that they haven't been playing super great lately, that hasn't really helped the two of them. So I kind of understand why they came in so low for the model, but these are two guys who don't really need recent form to come in and show out and play well here at this event. Brian Harmon, we already talked about, he was 11th. Cameron Young, 38. Sungjae Im, 55. Tony Finau, 3. Nick Taylor, 15. And Minwoo Lee, 26. And that's every golfer that was above $9,000 on DraftKings. All right, so now let's take a quick breather, and then let's take a look at the board and see who we like and don't like this week. All right, so now looking at the board on DraftKings, it is no surprise that Xander Schauffele is the betting favorite to win this event, as well as the highest priced player on DraftKings. And really, you don't have to pull my leg to play him on DraftKings. Like, he is coming in with really good form, runner up in the players. He's been really, really good at pretty much everywhere he's teed it up this year, except for Pebble Beach. And I just think that this course is a game that suits him pretty well. He's a very well-rounded player. So his approach play should allow him to separate. His chipping and putting should be good enough that way he's able to save par a lot. I think this is a pretty good fit for him. But I don't really think he makes for a great bet to win this tournament. I really think this is the bet where you're going to want to bet on some kind of underdog or just somebody who's a little bit off the board. I don't think this is a week to really bet the favorites because of how difficult the scoring position or conditions are going to prove to be. I just don't necessarily think that this is a week where it's exclusively going to be one by one of the favorites. I think that looking down the board for a winner is probably going to be the way to go. So I do like Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, and Jordan Spieth as well. Sam Burns rated out pretty well in my model. Thomas and Spieth did not. But what I think you're going to see this week on DraftKings is pretty steady ownership between these four guys. It would not shock me to see all four come in around 15 to 25% in that range because I think all four have their merits and flaws here at this course. And really, with there being a 5K range again on DraftKings, there's no real barrier from getting up to these guys in terms of pricing. So I really do think all four of these guys are going to be pretty popular. Spieth will probably be the least popular of the lot because he, objectively has the worst recent form. But I definitely think that he is absolutely playable coming into this event at a course that he's won at before. Now, Cameron Young is a guy that we got to look at the stat breakdown for. So Cameron Young has never played this event, but his ball striking lately has been kind of incredible. So on a per round basis, in the last two tournaments that he's played, he gained 1.28 strokes on approach and then 1.91 strokes on approach. So pretty much over two tournaments, that's 5 and 9 strokes gained on approach. That's like 19 strokes gained on approach. That's wild. But the problem is that he's giving it all back with the putter. Well, what if he just doesn't putt poorly? Well, then, if he has all those, the approach game that he generally has, then, and all the tee game that he generally has, and he just doesn't putt the ball poorly, well, then that's a recipe for Cameron Young to finally win a golf tournament. So Cam Young is a guy that I'm definitely going to be on and just hoping and praying for some putting regression that it's going to happen. And if it does, he's a guy who absolutely has the upside to win. Now, a guy that I do really like this week is going to be Nick Taylor. So we talked about last week his prowess for putting on this surface. He putted really well at the Players. He putted really well at Waste Management. Putted well at American Express. Strong history of putting at the Players Championship. So this surface for putting tends to do well for Nick Taylor. But if you look at it also, he has gained strokes on approach in every single tournament in the calendar year 2024. That generally is a pretty good sign of success. It is able to have consistently strong approach play. And so if he brings that this week with a putter that we know he should have a pretty good run at, then he does have the upside to win this tournament. Last year, he finished 10th place at this tournament, and that was with being a slight loser with the putter. Very, very close to neutral with the putter. So if he does, in fact, gain with the putter, he's another guy that has the absolute upside to win this event. Now, Doug Gim popped up on my model very highly, and it's because of his approach play recently. 5 straight tournaments, he has gained at least 2.5 strokes on approach. And he's also married that with being positive off the tee in every one of those events, positive around the green in 4 of 5, positive with the putter in 4 of 5. So he's shown the ability to gain strokes in all 4 major categories, with the biggest one being approach, which I think is the most important one this week. And oh, by the way, he has not finished worse than 16th in his last 5 events. So he is on an absolute heater. I think he makes for a great pick in DraftKings. I think he is a great top 20 and top 10 bet. Does he have the upside to win this tournament? Possibly, but I think the value in him is more playing him in DFS or betting him to come top 5 or top 10. Now, looking at the board from there, those are kind of my favorite plays at the upper part of the board. I do like Aaron Rai as well. He is a guy who is a pretty solid short gamer. He will keep it in play off the tee, coming in with 2 straight top 25 finishes. Not a bad look for Aaron Rai, in my opinion. Maverick McNeely, I think it's also time to put the whole injury to rest. Like, he finished 9th place at the Players, hasn't missed a cut since the American Express. So I think that he's back to being old Maverick McNeely. And if that's the case, he's a significant underprice at $8,100. He's one of the best putters on tour, which should play well here at this event, where putting is a way that you can either separate yourself by making birdies or separate yourself by saving par when others are making bogey. Sepp Straka and Taylor Moore and Andrew Putnam are all guys that I'm pretty interested in. Straka is just a great iron and long iron player, even though he isn't coming in with the best form. He did finish 16th at the Players. Taylor Moore is the defending champion of this event. He has the capability to get nuclear hot with the putter. He has not missed a cut this calendar year. So, interested in him for that reason. And then Andrew Putnam is another guy that is going to keep it in play off the tee. Strong approach play. Just finished 8th at the Arnold Palmer Invitational a few weeks back. I think that this is a guy that you definitely need to be on the lookout for at $7,700. Now, I also do like Sam Ryder at $7,300. He's a guy that popped up on my model pretty well, is coming in off of a 21st at the Cognizant Classic, 16th at the Players Championship. So these Florida courses have been suiting him pretty well, and I definitely am willing to go back to him for that reason. Adam Schenk is a guy that I do like also. He was the runner-up at this event last year, but you look at this year, and it's been really all over the board, but he got it back at the Players. He gained strokes in every category at the Players, and he also had a really good finish at the Tour Championship, came in 9th place, even though he was starting in like dead last because of the starting strokes. So that's a good finish at a comp course. The Players represents improving recent form, and last year at this tournament he came in 2nd place. So Adam Schenk is a guy that I'm definitely going to have my eye out on this week. He is a guy that seems to play better in weaker fields, of which this is by no means a weak field, but this is not a strong field either. So Adam Schenk is going to find his way onto my list as well. After that, Akshay Bhatia is in the field. We got to mention him. I think it's only a matter of time before he does win another PGA Tour event. However, the 2 missed cuts coming in are absolutely concerning. But I think that he's talented enough. He's going to figure it out. And this is the type of course that he can figure it out at, because he's just got such a solid tee to green game. He's a very accurate driver of the golf ball, with also not being short off the tee, but also he's a really good approach player. And so that skill should allow him to separate himself here at this event. And Davis Thompson is another guy that, I'm just starting to become a believer in his talent. And so those 2 guys at the low 7K range on DraftKings, I do like. I think they make for okay bets to win the golf tournament. I think the talent is there, and the win is going to come eventually. In the 6K range, there are a lot of guys who popped up really well in my model. You have Victor Perez, Kevin Yu, Jimmy Stanger, Joel Damon, and Chesson Hadley, who was the best out of all of them on the model. But all of them popped up really well in this statistical model, so I'm willing to roll with any of them here at the top of the 6K range. But a guy that I do want to go out of my way to mention is Andrew Novak. So Andrew Novak coming in was one of the best approach players in the field before the players, but then he dunks a few balls in the water and it leads to an early exit from that tournament. I'm not going to punish a guy for just a few bad shots that ended in water balls. So I'm willing to go back to Andrew Novak and his history at this event. He did play here last year and come in 27th, and that was with being a very poor approach and around the green player, which is not what he has shown in recent weeks, Players Championship notwithstanding. So Andrew Novak is a guy that I'm absolutely willing to go back to, along with Matthew NeSmith. So Matthew NeSmith is a very solid middle iron player who generally plays well in the southeastern United States. Just came in 26th at the Players, and at this event, he's got great history, 21st and 3rd. And so I really think that that bodes very well for Matthew NeSmith. He's going to be one of my favorite value plays this week. Lee Hodges is also a guy I got to mention. So not because of necessarily his course history. He's only had one made cut here in 2 tries and came in 63rd last year, but because of just the skill set that I think he possesses. He is a guy who is generally a pretty good long iron player. He is a guy who is generally pretty good at longer, more difficult courses, of which this is both of those. So I definitely am willing to go back to Lee Hodges, and he is another one of my favorite value plays this week. All right, so let's go ahead and end the looking at the board there. Let's go ahead and close this thing out by talking about some one and done. All right, so let's close this thing out by talking one and done. So this is an interesting one and done week because I feel like there's a lot of guys in this field that there's natural later spots to play them. Like, I'm not in a rush to play Xander Schauffele because Xander Schauffele has a very well-rounded game that'll play well at a lot of different courses, and I think it would bode well to have him later in the season just if I need him, right? Like, I don't think there's any reason to go out of my way to use him here at this event where he doesn't have a whole lot of history. Um, Aside from that, Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, I think, are very intriguing this week. Spieth, you've got the Texas courses left to use him at, as well as Augusta National if you want to use him there. Thomas has got, probably not as many natural landing spots left. So I think Thomas would make a very reasonable play here, even though he is coming in off a miscut at the Players. That recent form is definitely a little bit scary, but I do think that this would be a pretty good spot to deploy Justin Thomas if you still have him. Sam Burns is another one that, to me, just Colonial left. That's the only course left on the tour schedule that he has won at. He's won at this one twice. So if you still have him left, this is a pretty doggone good spot for him. I wouldn't say that it's the last call for him, but it's getting pretty close. The bar's getting about to close. So if you do have Sam Burns left, I think this is a great week to go ahead and just fire away on Sam Burns, especially if you've been kind of saving him for this event. Now, another guy that I like a lot this week is Nick Taylor. I don't necessarily think Nick Taylor is a guy that you have to use in one and done, but why not go ahead and capitalize on a guy who has been really good on this putting surface, a guy who has been pretty good at this course, and a guy who is coming in on really good recent form. I think he checks a lot of boxes, and I think he makes for a very reasonable play this week. Tony Finau is a guy that does have a few courses that he's won at coming up. He has won at Houston. He has won at the 3M Open. He has won at the Rocket Mortgage. So I do not think you have to play him here, but I think he's a pretty legitimately good play as well because of what he's done recently with his approach play. I definitely don't mind Tony Finau this week. Sungjae Im and Eric Cole are two guys that play in a ton of events, and I think at some point there's going to be a weaker field where they're going to be one of the favorites in. And so I would rather wait until then to deploy them than to play them here where they're like the 15th to 20th best golfer in the field. So for the one and done that I've been picking here, which I've been kind of on the struggle bus, I'm going to go ahead and lock in Sam Burns. Because I think that this is the best spot left to use him. I've got other guys that I can use at Colonial. I'm really tempted to go Nick Taylor if I feel like Nick Taylor is going to be a less chalky pick because I need to start gaining ground. But Sam Burns is going to be the guy that I go with here this week. All right, so that does it for the Valspar Championship 2024 preview. If you like what you saw here on this video on YouTube, please hit the like button. It helps me out a ton, and I really do appreciate it. If you like what you heard on audio, please rate and review the podcast. I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. It does not fall on deaf ears. I can guarantee you that. And then also, if you want more from me, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. If you want to join the March Madness bracket pool, reach out to me on Twitter and let me know that as well. And then also, I do write a full article for every single PGA Tour golf event where I profile my core DFS plays as well as my lineup strategy and attack strategy for the week, as well as the final top 10 for my final model. If you want all that information, subscribe to my Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. All right, so that does it for the Valspar Championship. Next time I'm on here for a golf show will be the Texas Swing as we head to the Houston Open next week. I will have college basketball content coming your way all week long, though, so make sure you're subscribed. And if you're interested in doing a bracket or playing college basketball DFS this week, make sure you check out that content as well. All right, thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Hopefully, I gave you guys plenty of information to help pick some winners, and I will see you next time.